Okay, so like art style theft doesn't exist and no one's ever talked about this, so I'm gonna explain to you why it doesn't exist. Alright, now before everyone starts spamming at me in the comments saying that everyone's already talked about art style theft, it's been debunked 5 bajillion thousand times by like everyone on YouTube and whatever. So you shouldn't be talking about. Trust me, I know. I am very aware that this has been talked about numerous of times, and I would never be that kind of person to just make a video regurgitating what everyone else has ever said just to get some views or something like that. I would not be making this video if I didn't believe I could say something that I haven't really heard stated or talked about that much in general in YouTube and whatnot. Granted, I have not watched every single video labeled art style theft on YouTube, and so it is very possible that something I'm saying actually might not be that original, and I just haven't heard the people who's saying what I'm about to say. But even if it is, I still came up with this conclusion on my own, so I'm going to consider it fair game because I haven't really seen anybody else talk about this. However, before I do that, there is always the possibility that someone here has not happened to watch any videos talking about it or is kind of new to this whole subject, therefore doesn't actually know what I'm talking about. So, just for the courtesy of those people, I will give a brief explanation as to what I'm talking about. If you'd like to skip that explanation because you already know what it is, you've heard it talked about at length, you've heard it debunked before, whatever, then skip to like this time or something to just get into the meat of my video. Still here? Great. So, art style theft, quote unquote, is something that came up a little while ago or whatever that's been debunked numerous times, where there'd be artists claiming that somebody else is somehow stealing their art style. And just to be plain and simple, no, it doesn't exist. It's not real. Everyone else has debunked it. Trust me. Go watch any other video labeling that it's not real, whatever. You can hear what they say there because they all say roughly about the same thing, and I won't spend 5 minutes debunking it because everyone already has. Oftentimes, art style theft seems to be very directly associated with tracing. I've seen people before who show comparisons of art style theft, but it's not art style theft, it's literally just tracing, which is bad, but it's not art style theft, it's just tracing. I will also say, because this is a point that I hear mentioned sometimes, but not all the times, honestly, mimicking someone else's style is not a bad thing at all. In fact, if you were someone who wanted to go into animation or possibly even making comics in an industry, mimicking is the best skill you can have, and it's probably what's going to get you a job sometimes. It's really actually a good skill for an artist to be able to mimic something by looking at it. That's just how it is. I mean, what? Are you going to tell me that every realism artist is just stolen from real life because they drew something realistically with the intention to make it look like that exact object in life? Anyway, I digress. So with that out of the way, what do I want to talk about? What is this magical thing that I'm going to try to shove onto the table of this topic or whatever? Well, my lovely viewer here, it's kind of on the topic of where I believe the psychology behind why people get angry at art style theft, or where people who believe art style theft is a thing come from, as weird as that sounds. Now, I am very perfectly aware that the people who believe in art style theft seem to be a minority, at least from where I'm standing. Most people that I bring up the subject to seem to all collectively agree that art style theft is absolute BS. So why on earth am I trying to analyze the psychology of a minority? Simple. Because it's a mindset that I actually see translate into other places beyond just art style theft. That's right, this video is mostly clickbait, haha! I'm just kidding. I'm still going to be talking mostly about people who believe in art style theft, but I will show you what I mean by it seems to apply to multiple areas of art and even other things in real life in a moment. So here's the thing. From what I've gathered, and of course I could be totally wrong about this, it seems that people who believe in art style theft are just artists who are having an emotional reaction trying to protect something that they love and care about. Most of the time, I'm gonna say 80 to 85% of the time, when I see someone claiming X stole Y's art style, typically it's the artist saying, "You stole my art style." kind of funny that that's the case. It's kind of funny how I rarely see fans go out of their way and say, you stole this artist that I am a fan of's art style. And I even rarely see that the occasional stranger of like, hey, your art style looked like this random artist style. Now, I'm sure it probably happens, but I have yet to really see much of that. This is kind of funny when you take into consideration that it's usually the fans of someone who overreact to seeing their favorite artist's work stolen or their characters ripped off, while the artist is usually rather chill. I say usually because it's not always. So why with art style theft is it the artist that usually gets mad when they see their art style quote unquote stolen? And what I believe is that it's simply just an emotional reaction. A lot of people, if they were to just go online and if they were to see that their art has been quote unquote stolen or copied or whatever in style, they'll immediately assume the worst and kind of assume that it was done intentionally and with malice intent without thinking about two things. One, the person could be a younger or less experienced artist who merely likes the person's art and likes that style and wishes to draw on a similar one, whether it be for practice or to help learn a new style and improve their own. Or it could be someone who's just straight up developed the style all on their own with no contact with the other person, because trust me, that happens a lot with a lot of things. Originality is not as common as people seem to think it is. After all, most artists, myself included, are very passionate about their art. They love their art. They put a piece of them in their artwork and in their characters when they create them. So to see someone steal them, I'm sure some people would think, you're stealing, you're taking what's mine. And I'm sure that somewhere subconsciously, there's a thought process of, well, now people won't see me as original. I feel less original now because I'm not the only one who can draw this. I'm not the only person with this sort of style anymore. I'm sure a lot of people who seem to think that art style theft exists are just a bit more defensive than they need to be. They're just protecting something that they believe that is theirs. Now, are they wrong in doing that? Yes, because art style theft doesn't exist. But having a reaction to someone supposedly taking something that's yours is kind of a common human nature. We see it all the time. But with that out of the way, and establishing that art style theft is most likely artists who feel like some part of them has been taken, I want to explain how I believe this translates into other things, and how I believe that the whole subject of art style theft could actually kind of help us fix some things elsewhere. It seems like most of us can agree that art style theft and its claim is kind of ridiculous. Well, there's a lot of times I've seen wherever people seem to think that someone's tracing their artwork or heavily referencing their artwork or stealing or ripping off their character, where I seem to see a lot of artists seem to kind of jump to conclusions and not really take a step back and think about it logically. Now, don't misinterpret me. Stuff like tracing, character theft, whatever, does exist and it does happen. And I'm not talking about the cases where someone legitimately consciously rips off a character or steals a character or traces artwork. I'm not talking about that. I'm actually talking about the people who, like, say person A has a character that they designed, person B uploads a character that looks kind of similar to A's character, and then A turns around and says, you're stealing me, that is my character. Sure, they might have a different hairstyle, backstory, name, gender, clothing, etc., but because their color schemes are kind of similar, you're stealing from me. Which is kind of ridiculous, and yes, I've seen that happen. I kid you not, people, it happens. And so here's where I believe the link comes in. I feel like there are a lot of artists out there who are a little bit too protective over the characters and the art that they make. So much so that when they see something online that looks vaguely similar, before they take a step back and they make their comparisons and they maybe take a few hours to cool off, they immediately jump on there and say, you're stealing from me. I see this all the time, and I especially see it with, like, more infamous artists too. There's people I've seen before. There's some cases out there that I could bring up, but some of it's older drama, so I'm not going to go too in depth about it. But anyway, I see it happen. I see people all the time who see a character that's vaguely similar and they think that that character's being ripped off from them. I see people who see an artwork with a specific pose and they think, you must have traced this from me. But when you really look at them over top one another, there's like everything's different, you know, and there's proportions that are different and whatever. And it's like, how could someone have actually traced this? And it's kind of similar to the whole art style theft thing. I believe people with this mentality that these two characters look vaguely similar is the similar or even the same as the people who think that art style theft is a thing and freak out when they think somebody is taking their art style. Hell, you know what? I will give you a personal example of where I've seen this kind of thing happen. A little while ago, and so long ago that nobody should go finding this because it's been over and done with for like months now, there was someone who commented on one of my fusion speed paints of, I believe it was like, I don't know. It was one of my fusion speed paints or whatever. And they commented something saying that, hey, I posted this fusion about a week ago or whatever, and I think that these two fusions, they're of the same characters and they look way too similar. It could be a coincidence, but it's just too alike for me, and they gave me a link. So part of me took a deep sigh and said, well, is this going to be one of those freaky moments where two people made the exact same thing without ever talking to each other? They clicked it, and they looked like two completely different things. Like, not even the colors were vaguely similar, but they weren't even close to the same thing. At all. Hell, we even used different gems for the fusion. In fact, the only real things that I could see that were similar were that they had two hands attached to each wrist, only even that was different because one of them, because mine both faced the same way, theirs faced towards each other. So, yeah, I had a long discussion with this person because the two weren't similar in the slightest. And from speculation from that situation, I can only assume that the person looked at mine and they had a bit of a emotional reaction of sort of vaguely remembering this thing that they posted a week ago and saying that they look exactly the same without really looking at the two side by side and thinking, gee, they hardly look, they don't even look related to one another. Hell, you know, I've had friends who've done this before. I have had friends who've in the past, as much as I love them, who have in the past said that this character looks like a ripoff of mine, or this artwork looks like even a rip of mine. I have friends come to me saying like, hey, this person looks like they're stealing, they're copying your artwork. And I look at it and I say, no, they're really not. Maybe there was inspiration involved, but they're really not stealing my artwork here. But I've had friends who've had the emotional reaction too. It's really a kind of a natural emotion. Just an idea of seeing something and kind of thinking that your baby or something you love dearly is being taken from you and stolen. And while that kind of thing does happen, a lot of the times it seems like a lot of people have an emotional reaction to it. I do think that there is an easy solution to this problem. This is where I want to give some advice here. If you are ever exploring the web, whether it be on YouTube, DA, Tumblr, Instagram, Twitter, whatever website you travel upon mostly, whatever, if you see something that looks similar to your art, your characters, your style, whatever, before you jump down the person's throat and immediately claim them a thief and immediately get angry, take a step back and think for a second. Look at the two things side by side. Don't just go off of your memory, because human memory has a bad time remembering character designs and what art specifically looked like. Trust me. Hell, even better, before you actually leave any comment or declare them a thief, maybe take the pictures and send them to your friends and ask them what they think. Don't tell them that, hey, this person stole from me, but just show them pictures and ask them, do you think this looks at all similar to mine? And see what they have to say. Hopefully, if you're surrounding yourself with the right people, they'll give you an honest answer. And if the person does feel like they're taking from you too much or at all, then they'll tell you. And if not, hopefully they will tell you that as well and give you reassurance that the person's not stealing from you. And not only that, but if you are going to go in and accuse the person, rather than just accusing them, maybe just point it out and try to have a discussion with them instead of getting very angry off the bat and saying that they're stealing from you somehow, because They could just be a fan who looks up to you and likes your ideas and took inspiration from it, or they could be someone who hasn't even ever met you before, hasn't ever seen your artwork or characters or anything, and was just, it happened coincidentally, because trust me, it happens a lot. But yeah, I think that about covers what I have to say. I have no clue what I'm going to be drawing for this video. It'll be something, I'm sure. It's probably going to be something totally unrelated to what I'm talking about. But yeah, so that's my video on art style theft, among other things. In fact, I might actually include other things in the title, I don't know. But anyway, leave a like if you enjoyed, and leave a comment with your thoughts and your opinions, what have you. Do you think that maybe I'm kind of wrong in assuming that this is an emotional thing, that this is an emotional thing, whatever? Do you think that art style theft actually exists? If so, please share your comments, I guess. My only request with comments is that whether you agree or disagree with me, just don't go around flaming and yelling at people. I don't care if you agree or disagree with me, that's not cool either way. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video, whatever it may be. Zodiac, out.